So the question I got was, what about positive thoughts? But the comment that we got was so chock full of really good information that I want to just go through the whole comment because it's a great comment, and from the point of view of the person commenting, it makes everything they said makes complete sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it also sheds some light on some really interesting things that I wanted to cover in this episode called The Disruptive Truth about Positive Thoughts. And if you're in love with positive thinking, you're probably not going to be in love with me. Oh
But
my
also, they
God.
haven't really had a chance to get like a lot of one-on-one time, you know?
Yeah, they don't know hopefully they'll stay long enough to find out where I'm coming from. So,
Yeah.
welcome to Mastering Thought, where we talk about the mind, marriage, and mental health. And I'm Mark Waller, and this is Christina Black.
Howdy.
And before I forget, let me encourage everybody to like and subscribe.
Good
Boom.
job, Mark. You
I
remembered that right
know.
at the beginning. You
Yeah,
really are
I'm
becoming a professional.
ever since I moved into the home, my memories come back. You know what I'm saying? So,
Oh, good stuff.
yeah.
Well, I'm really excited for today's episode. I think it was such a good question in the comments, and I'm really excited to take this on sentence by sentence.
Okay, so let's look at the comment. Now,
Yeah.
as is my wont, I have jammed it into one slide, which I apologize for, but we're going to literally go through
We
this
hope you're
sentence
not.
by
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, we're going to go through it sentence by sentence. So even though it's a little hard to read here, we're going to break it down. So, do you want to read it?
Me? Sure.
Go ahead.
From the comments. But what if my thoughts are telling me positive things? Then I can't believe those either, eh? So then am I just lost in a morass of confusion and lack of understanding? This can't possibly be good. This exercise seems to be encouraging people to be morally and spiritually adrift, not believing anything, or just going with the flow. This is very convenient for outside manipulators and tyrants to take control and convince us of things, since we are being trained to disbelieve the thought that says this is wrong. If I'm disidentified with all thought, then what?
Okay,
Wonderful comment. Thank you for typing that all out.
so let me tell the audience what this is referring to. Let me try to clear my throat. So this is talking about the thought watching exercise, and I'm going to link. Um, you're smiling and laughing.
You don't want to know how immature it was. When you said, let me clear my throat, a piece of me wanted to like be like, while you muted. Anyway.
Anyway, so so the exercise that the commenter is referring to is the thought watching exercise that we talk about a lot on this channel, and I'm going to link a video at the end of this that takes you through that exercise and references the awakening of Eckhart Tolle. So, but let's get into this. So let's take the first sentence, and this is where the most controversial stuff is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And the first sentence is, but what if my thoughts are telling me positive things? Now, this is incredibly interesting from 2 points of view. And so let me before I bring up my answer, did something pop into your head when you saw that?
Well, I mean, I could totally see where this person is coming from. You know, the desire to keep positive thoughts, and especially if you haven't had an awakening yet, you can't, like, you don't know what to compare the positive thoughts to
Right.
the experience of having positive thoughts versus having the awakened
That's very
mind.
smart. I appreciate that point of view. So here's the question, but what if my thoughts are telling me positive things? Okay, first of all, the way the commenter phrased this question is at the heart of disidentification. See, because we generally would not make the comment that my thoughts are telling me positive things. Because the problem with human beings is we have identified ourselves with our thoughts.
Right.
And so we don't have this external point of view that tells us our thoughts are telling us something. It's me talking
Right.
to me. And so what's ironic about the way the commenter phrased the question, it's
Interesting.
almost like at some level they understand what the problem is because they're saying that my thoughts are telling me positive things as if the
Yeah,
thoughts
they're
are
telling
separate,
me. Yeah, the thoughts are telling me. Mm-hmm.
which is exactly right. That's exactly correct. But I don't think
Mm-hmm.
they realize the way that this is correct.
Mm-hmm.
So this gets to the whole heart of disidentification because we don't think our thoughts are telling us anything. We think it's me talking to me. Now,
Right.
let me make another comment here that I realize probably is confusing to the commenter and maybe a lot of other people. When we talk about thought watching and thoughts, we're talking about verbal thought. We're talking about the voice in your head that sounds like you talking to you. We're not talking about cognition, which this is my distinction that I'm making. So this is the way this works. The entire right hemisphere is nonverbal. And most of the left is nonverbal, but the only thing we pay any attention to is a little spot in the left hemisphere that talks to us all the time. So in this video, we're talking about verbal thought. In other words, words being spoken in our heads.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's get to number 2 here. Positive versus negative. So here's where this gets really tricky. So the questioner is talking about positive thoughts, but let me ask you a question, Christina.
All right.
If you had confused yourself to be your shirt, would it matter whether it was black or white?
If I had confused myself into believing I was a shirt,
Yeah, I know it's a little bizarre, but
I would say it doesn't matter.
that's correct. Because you're not a shirt.
This
You're
is
obviously.
this is like the opposite of Gestalt theory.
So, so the problem is we're not the voice in our head. It's not whether it's positive or negative that's the problem.
Right.
So
It's who
positive
you're getting
thoughts
your
can have,
counsel from.
what's that?
It's who you're getting your counsel from. It's just
Exactly.
like believing
So,
your thoughts are your
so
friends. Yeah.
exactly. So the problem is we're not a shirt. We're not the voice in our heads. We're not our thoughts. And so from that perspective, identifying ourselves as our positive or as our negative thoughts is just as equally strangling.
Right. 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 Right.
So the whole
Yep.
thrust of what we're talking about here is a process of disidentifying, which takes us right back because once you're disidentified, you do notice that your thoughts are talking to you, but you know that you are not your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Right.
So that's why this idea is disruptive to the idea of positive thinking because honestly, in 25 years of working with people, positive thinking will not overcome the internal emotional programming we carry around with us. It just won't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's go to the second question or the second sentence. Then I can't believe those either, eh? And I assume A means this person is from Canada, but I don't want to be insulting.
Could be the Midwest, right?
Could, well, that's right. That's right. So, or they could have their tongue in their cheek.
Eh?
So, here we go. Then I can't believe those either. Now, here's my answer to this. You're free to believe your thoughts. You're totally free to believe your negative thoughts or your positive thoughts. But the problem is when you identify with thought, you are not free and you suffer. Because if you identify with your negative emotional thoughts, then you're going to suffer unnecessarily. What do I mean by that? Life is painful, but suffering is all the thinking we do about the pain. And then there is another aspect of this too, and that is that our so-called positive thoughts are oftentimes serving another purpose. And they only seem positive, but there's an underlying emotional agenda to be repeating this positive dialogue in your head. And a lot of times you're trying to manage your anxiety without actually knowing you're anxious, which is a bit of a problem. So I'm not trying to judge anybody's positive or negative thoughts here. The nice thing is when you disidentify, you don't need to judge them at all. You completely have the choice as to whether you want to believe your thoughts or not. When you identify with your thoughts, you basically you've given up the choice.
You're right. Yeah, you're just subject to them.
Because you're subject to them because you believe that's me. That's me in the head talking. Okay, let's
Yeah.
go to the third sentence here. So then am I just lost in a morass of confusion and lack of understanding? If we don't, and she's in the context, this person is saying, if I don't believe my positive thoughts, am I just lost in a morass of confusion and lack of understanding? And the answer is, the voice in your head is the source of confusion and lack of understanding. And when you identify yourself as the voice in your head, you're always in a state of confusion and lack of understanding. It just gives you a sense of control. Because emotional thoughts come, as we've talked many, many times, come from the 5-year-old brain called the limbic system. I call it the monkey brain, commonly known as the ego. So the stream of thoughts that are around our identity and our emotions is coming from the limbic system, which is completely wired up by the time we're 5 years of age, or very nearly completely. If there's a neuroscience scientist listening, they probably disagree with me a little bit there.
Leave it in the comment. We all want to learn.
Yeah, that's right. So what we have is this 5-year-old child, basically with an imperative to survive, that's running our lives and dictating to us in our heads. And that 5-year-old child is based in a part of the brain that we share with monkeys or other mammals. And of course, in more spiritual terms, we call it the ego, which is a slight derivation from what Freud called the ego. It's not quite exactly the same concept, but
Right.
anyway. Am I coming through okay on that end?
Yeah.
I just had a call, so my screen changed a little bit, and I just want to make sure. Okay. Any questions or comments so far, Christina?
Nope. I feel like I'm keeping up.
Well, you always keep up. That's not a problem. All right. So now here's the fourth sentence. This can't possibly be good. This exercise seems to be encouraging people to be morally and spiritually adrift, not believing anything and just going with the flow.
I did remember something I wanted to say.
Go ahead.
Please, would you go back to the last slide?
Yes.
Um, One thing, because this is in response to the thought watching exercise, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to maybe point out that this is only like the guidelines we're giving for the thought watching exercise or just for during the thought watching exercise. If you're still in the middle of the exercise and before awakening, you don't have to do this 24/7.
Right.
Yeah.
The exercise
Okay.
itself is a very casual thing. And if you want to get into the meat and potatoes of the exercise, please watch the video about Eckhart Tolle's awakening at the end of the presentation today. Okay, so let's go back to this. So this can't
Yeah.
possibly be good. Are we just adrift? And the answer is, since the source of emotional or charged verbal thoughts is the monkey brain, it is far more likely for us to be driven to poor choices based on drives, impulses, and perceived attacks, which all come from the limbic system.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to be morally adrift, if you look at the world the way it is, the reason the world is morally adrift is because everybody out there believes they are the voice in their head and they're listening to their own monkey brain, which
Mm-hmm.
basically is really charged with survival, and as we said in a recent video, involved in group identification and tribalism and attacking and defending, and
Yeah.
it's not a higher way of living. So
Right.
my
Well, and
response to this is we're already adrift.
yeah, sure. And like when you're in fight or flight, a little like I don't remember exactly how to say this eloquently. I just had heard it at like a parenting slash homeschooling conference a while ago. But it was something like if you're a little bit stressed out in fight or flight, you immediately go to being able to using 60% of your prefrontal cortex. And if you're like in super fight or flight mode, you can only use 10%.
Mm-hmm.
And
And that's
so
be
I could just, yeah, see that tying in with what you're saying too. Like if you're already
right.
kind of stressed out, this thinker is just gonna decrease its
So,
quality of
so what
work.
happens is the limbic system, which is the monkey brain, comes and completely overwhelms the prefrontal cortex up here, which is the adult brain.
Right.
And guess what? The children are in charge. That's exactly what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Yeah, and what people don't understand is the voice in your head emotionally is being driven by a part of the brain that is fight or flight, where we get our drives. Sex drive comes from the limbic
Limbic.
system, the amygdala, impulses, emotional impulses like anger and perceived attacks. That all comes from the limbic system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I don't want to judge this commenter because, from the commenter's point of view, everything that's being said is completely reasonable. I
Yeah.
totally, I really had a lot of respect for the person who wrote all this, but I really thought it deserved a response.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully they'll watch this and they just didn't make a comment and then move on because it was, I'd say, very inspirational.
Thoughtful question.
Yep. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5. This is really interesting. This is very convenient for outside manipulators and tyrants to take control and convince us of things, which actually is exactly what's happening right now, since we are being trained to disbelieve the thought that says this is wrong. Okay, So, where does this take us? You ready?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think it's interesting. When I had read that before, I didn't think about that your limbic system is is the tyrant that's but I mean, I'm interested to see how you answer her too, if you answer
Okay.
directly too.
So, we're constantly being manipulated via our emotions already. Outside forces are using social media, peer pressure, social pressure, and scare tactics, and psyops, and pandemics, and whatever else is going on. As long as we are thought identified, we're doomed not to be controlled. So the questioner's
You mean
worst
we're doomed
fear.
to be controlled
No, well, we're we're being controlled.
if we identify with our thoughts, we're being controlled.
That's right.
Okay. Okay.
Because we're being the outside forces know how to manipulate us.
Absolutely. Sure.
And they're manipulating us via the limbic system.
Hmm.
And so they are already convincing us of things because they know,
Right.
and trust me,
Like marketing
the
too.
marketing people,
Yeah.
I mean, there are levels of controls, and we're being manipulated in ways we can't even imagine. And this has been studied extensively by the Defense Department and the government and the CIA and, corporations. They know exactly what to do and how to steer us in the direction they want us to go or how to
Sure.
divide us. And the
Sure.
only reason this can happen is because we're being driven by the voice in our head, which is being controlled by the lower, more primitive part of the brain. And that's what's being triggered by all this stuff all the time.
Right.
And so when you disidentify from the voice in your head, you very quickly realize that the level of manipulation is less effective on you than it was.
Right.
So, and there's a lot of information about this right now on various platforms where you can find out how you're being manipulated. What, and of course, this also happens in relationships.
Sure.
We are subtly manipulating our partners all the time. We just don't realize we're doing it.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah, that's interesting point.
so are we ready for the last one here?
Uh, well, actually, can I respond to something
Here?
in her? Yeah. Yeah. So one way that I'm reading the question is um while in the thought watching exercise, or maybe the author means in an awakened mind, that you disidentifying from your thoughts would make you not make choices or something, or like not trust
Right,
your instincts. And that's not what this is. It's telling your instincts to sit in the passenger seat of the car and not the driver's seat of the car,
right,
and that your highest part of your brain can like choose to think about things, and those thoughts could be valid, like if you're trying to think to yourself, we're not saying you have to disbelieve all of those thoughts, right?
well, you have a choice whether to believe them or not.
Right, but I'm just saying when thoughts are thrown at you, it's not you talking to you. But when you are talking
Right.
to yourself, we're not saying don't treat that like you're talking to yourself.
So
When you're trying to
so
talk to yourself, you are talking to yourself.
let me give you an example of what just came up for me when you were saying that. So let's say
Yeah.
I'm going to your house for dinner,
Yeah.
and you've given me directions. And so I'm in my car and I'm driving and I'm thinking, okay, I got to turn right on Elm Street and left on Main Street and right on Oak Street. I'm using my internal dialogue, my internal voice, as a tool to reinforce my short-term memory.
Mhm.
And then I think, and
Right.
when I get there, she won't like my blue shirt and we'll have a miserable evening. Okay, now the voice is using me.
Mhm.
But
Right.
before you disidentify, you never know when the voice is using and when it's volitional, when you're choosing to use the tool of the internal dialogue.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when the voice is using you, others can step in and manipulate that
Right.
because
Yeah.
they know you believe that voice, and if they stimulate your emotions in a certain way, you're going to have a certain kind of dialogue in your head and you're going to make the choices they want you to make.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, there was something else you said that I keyed on and then I forgot what it was, but that was a really good
Maybe if
point.
we maybe if we pull it up.
This?
Yeah. Did it have to do with like mm, I don't know. Maybe we can move on, and if it's important we'll come back.
Go ahead. What came to mind? Maybe it'll trigger that again for me.
Um just thinking that let's see if I can grab it. I don't know. I think it's gone.
Okay, well, that happens.
We'll have to rewind if we want to hear it.
Okay. All right, so the last sentence is if I'm disidentified with all thought, then what? And ta
Right. And so
da!
I think
Go
that is
ahead.
actually kind of where I was going with it. You're not
Okay.
meaning that we should always disidentify with all thought um, for this exercise. This exercise is just for a small couple snippets of the day,
Oh, that's
right?
true. Right.
Yeah. So I guess that was the point that I was trying to make.
Okay, so no, wait a minute. I know what it was. You reminded
Okay.
me of the point. So this is very important that people understand this. Intuition, intelligence, wisdom, and knowledge are all nonverbal. Knowledge and wisdom don't come from the internal dialogue. Intuition is very important. What happens is the brain processes something and it reflects it into the body, and the body becomes the theater of the mind, and that's how we kind of know what we want to do.
Right.
But if the voice in our head is counteracting that, we override our intuition and then we make choices we regret.
Right.
So there's something to be said about being congruent that's very powerful, but the voice in your head doesn't like congruency. It has just its own opinion, and that's it.
Such a child.
Okay, so the last sentence question was if I'm disidentified with all thought, then what? Well, disidentification leads to freedom from our instincts, our reactions, and our emotional pain, and the need for everyone else to die so we can live.
Mm,
Now, that's a bold statement, but you need to understand that the limbic system is all about survival. So the monkey brain is perfectly fine with you dying so I can live. No problem. And as long as we live in that instinctual world that's, created at that level, then we're going to be at war in some form or another.
mhm. Mhm. I do especially now if I start to get in like a mood of any kind, have like a strong anger or frustration or whatever pop up, if I go into fight or flight, I will actually feel like an animal. I
Hmm.
actually feel my intelligence go down
Right.
and that I'm just like this scrappy, reactive animal. And then if I can pause and calm down and get out of it and come back, then I can like be human again.
Right.
But it was such an interesting it is such an interesting experience after having spent most of my life not being awakened.
Right.
So I guess it still stands out. But
Well, you
yeah.
can really feel the rush of all the chemicals that go with that triggering and that anger,
Yeah.
and it's easy to get addicted to that rush.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, we've been trying to practice that nonviolent communication method, and
Hmm.
that's really hard to do when you're an animal. It's really
Exactly.
hard to hear with empathy about what they're saying first
Yeah.
because my ego wants them to die so I can
Right.
live. Like, it's totally a
Exact.
perfect example. Like, I want to step on your toes so that I can be right. When really we might both have ways we were both right and wrong, and we need to talk like humans. So now we can. Yay.
Awesome. So I want to thank the commenter
Yeah.
for just opening up an entire thing here, because the more I read the comment, the more I realized, wow, this is so
So well thought
right
out.
from their point of view,
Yeah.
but it's just such an opportunity for us to dive into that and explain it more.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, I hope you like this kind of material and you'll subscribe to the channel.
I will, Mark. I'll subscribe.
Well, I appreciate that.
You
So we're
convinced me.
getting we're getting fantastic response.
Yeah.
We
Thank
just
you,
had a
everyone.
we just had a free webinar yesterday, and we had people from Portugal. No, was it Peru and Spain
Mm-hmm.
and Bakersfield, faraway places.
Yeah.
And then we had a guest appearance by somebody who just gave us a huge endorsement. So we're getting a lot of positive things happening here,
That was cool.
and we'd love to have you continue on the journey with us and share
Mm-hmm.
your ideas and your responses in the comments below.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interested, I've written 3 books. Actually, written more than 3 books, but the three,
How many? How many have you
uh,
written?
I want to say 5.
5.
Yes, 5.
Man, that's
Yeah, 2 of
amazing.
them aren't on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
The Lion Unicorn is about relationships, mastering thoughts about the voice in your head, and Awakening is kind of takes it into the realm of enlightenment. And the dance is available in Audible format. Now, one more thought. We're planning on having some free webinars for the thought watching and for the Lion and Unicorn model of relationships. And if you'd like to join us, or you need anything else, or would like to contact us, please scan the QR code. It takes you to a little form, and then we'll get on it right away and respond as best we can. Also, links to my books are in the description, along with some other resource material. So, what else,
Good
Christina?
stuff. I don't know. You talked about a workbook you had for some of those books before, and then I got really jealous because I never got a workbook, and you said they don't exist anymore. So now I want you to make them again.
All right, so I'm gonna, that's funny. So somebody on our webinar yesterday was involved with me many years ago in some of my webinars then, and I had a workbook, and he got a copy of it, and now I'm gonna have to get my old hard drive out and go search for it and see if I can find it.
Yeah, that'd be cool. See what
And
happens when I meet your secret friends? Everybody wins.
yeah, the yesterday was very interesting. It was really good
It
to
was
see
cool.
some old friends.
Yeah, I hope that if you are even kind of interested in the webinar, that you attend because that was pretty cool.
And it's absolutely free, and there's no sales pitch at the end. So don't worry about that.
We just want your blood donations. I don't know. I'm just kidding. We don't want that.
All right. We'll go on about our day, and we'll be back very soon with another episode.
Thank you for watching.
All right. Bye bye.